disgusting display.
Oh, tonight we got 'em. Goldie, the Sulk, and JC.
The typical, disgusting display. And it starts right now.
Oh, welcome back to another episode of A Typical Disgusting Display, a podcast for writers by writers who hate writing. Had a little trouble getting started today, a little confusion this morning. Goldie, you want to shed a little light on your last
Sure.
24 hours?
Yeah. First of all, Alex Sulkin,
Yes.
fuck you.
Oh no!
God damn it.
Here's why. Fuck you because you're my boss. I'm saying it for the record. And you gave me a day off on Monday. Let me explain why this is
why
a
is that
bad
bad?
thing.
Why?
Let me explain. Okay. Allow me to explain. So on Friday, you declared we're very far ahead, and you make a big show of this. You're basically lying down on laurels like Caesar.
Yep.
And I believe you did this gesture where you showed us the back of your palms, the back of your hands, and sort of made a brushing motion. And you said,
Get out of
you know what,
here,
everyone can have Monday off. And the second you said that, I said to myself, I do not have a day off. I just don't know how yet.
Oh no!
There's no such thing in my life
No days
with
off.
2 kids as a day off. So it's like,
right.
let's see how this is going to unfold, how it's worse than working. Because we all know it's going to happen. We just don't know how yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. An hour later, my wife gets a call. She's very happy. And she says, I booked a commercial.
Yes, go Steph.
She's an actress, meaning she booked a commercial. So she's going to be in a commercial. Oh, that's great. So this commercial can tape anytime, right? It can film from the second
Tuesday.
from the second she books it, it can film to when the universe collapses. In that total gap of time. There's only one day it won't work for me.
Right.
And that's Monday.
Monday.
So it's Monday, which means I have to do everything with the kids on that day. The pickoffs, the drop-offs, the dog. Although I may not, because maybe it starts shooting at noon, right? Like TV production. They don't always start at 9 a.m. But then she gets her call time 6:30 a.m.
Oh my God.
So not only does that mean like I have to do everything, but it means she's got to be up at 5. And when she gets up, you know, we've been married 15 years. We still share a bed.
Yeah,
not that
congratulations. That's unusual.
Yeah, but that means I'm going to be up.
All right.
But you go, okay, so I can wrap my mind around this. It'll be okay. Saturday morning, we wake up. My younger kid is like, my stomach hurts.
Oh, boy.
Oh no.
And she just can't do anything. She feels really bad. So we go, well, we got to get a doctor. So I don't know if you've tried to get a doctor for a kid on Saturday, but that's like saying, like, I want to touch the ball in Times Square on New Year's Eve. It's impossible.
Oh, wait. Sorry.
First joke of the day.
So
This guy wants to touch balls.
we call around. We somehow get a pediatrician who agrees to see us, and they say, you have to be there in 15 minutes or we're closing. I live 20 minutes away.
Oh, boy.
I say, okay. I Italian job it there.
I
don't stop. I don't stop for a light. I don't stop for anything. I just get there. I pull up. We get there because they're closing, remember. I have to get there right then. So I drive very dangerously. I get there. I run in with 1 second left on the clock. Wait an hour and a half. So I didn't have to be there,
That's
did
really
I?
messed
that's
Did I really?
infuriating.
Yeah.
So anyway, it turns out they say, oh, my little kid, she's constipated. She needs to take Miralax, but that's fine. She hasn't vomited or anything. No. So we say, no, she hasn't been sick. So we get out of there, get home, she vomits.
Oh, no.
So now she's super sick. So it's like she's not going to school Monday.
Right.
Okay. So now not only am I taking care of, now there's a sick kid.
Yeah.
So then yesterday, I basically like get my older kid to school with the younger kid. have a younger kid at home. She suddenly feels better. She's like, I think I can go to school. So I run her to school, the lunch, all that stuff. But she doesn't want to go to the after school, so I got to pick her up at 2:30. So I pick her up at 2:30. In between this, there's dog stuff to do. I pick up my other kid at 4. There's 2 other kids I got to pick up and drive home. I got to walk the dog. I got to make them dinner, and then my wife strolls through the door at, I don't know, like 8,
Stroll.
She's had a day, and by the way, so she's been gone from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. Commercials are 30 seconds long. Like, we've shot shows, entire half-hour sitcoms in 3 hours on a set. This isn't, they're in a studio. So this is, to get 30 seconds, she's been gone, I don't know, 16. I'm not good with math. 16 hours. How did it go? She's like, it went really well, all this stuff. So that's good. Because if I came in and she started bitching about the workday,
Right.
I'm jumping out a window, even though my house has no elevation. I'm just jumping out the window.
Wait, I have to cut in with one thing at this moment because I've learned this lesson well. Thank you, Tall. Thank you for all the stuff that Goldie just said that he did in that day, which sounds like a nightmare. Thank you for doing that every day. Continue.
Well, I'm not going to belabor this. I've said it on past podcasts, but I'm not like you. I don't cheat. I don't have help.
Right.
You're cheating. So that's fine.
because-
I won the Tour de France. Well, with the steroids and everything, congratulations. I mean, you still had to ride the bike. I get it.
Yeah. Name any other cyclist besides Lance Armstrong.
Floyd Landis, who also was on steroids. Miguel Indurain.
Oh, wow.
yes.
Wow.
That Lance in the Sun, Miguel Indurain.
Fausto Coppi.
Oh.
Wow.
Pale imitation.
Eddie Merckx. Okay.
Ooh.
So back on track. So my wife comes home. She's had a good day, thank God, because if it was bad. And she says, but there is one thing I have to tell you. I go, what? But I said it like more positive now. Like, what is it? We have to shoot tomorrow too. Oh. So now this 30-second shoot is going into a second day. It's the apocalypse now of commercials. They've come under the sway of a mad director, and they're slogging through the jungle.
What's the commercial for?
Yeah.
Can't say non-disclosure.
What do you mean you can't
Is
say?
it a national ad?
I cannot say.
Why?
Wow, that's cool.
I don't know. She signed a non-disclosure agreement, so
That's
it's probably
cool.
something good.
Do you know if it's a national commercial? Can you say that?
I would assume it's a national commercial if there's a non-disclosure.
Wait,
Great.
did she tell you what it was?
No.
Wow.
Second I heard there was an NDA, I said, don't tell me.
That's a good point.
As we both know, if there's torture, I'm just going to say it. Even
Yes,
if there's
that's
no
right.
torture. I
We're
went
gonna-
over this last
We're
week.
going
That's
to
great.
pull out a fingernail.
You
Don't
can't
bother.
give me information.
Yeah.
Because I'll rat it out. So they're going into a second day of shooting. And of course, is the call time noon? No, it's earlier. It's 6 a.m. somehow. Like, we got to get a jump on this 30 seconds.
They're probably shooting outside,
They're not.
I guess. They're not.
They're not.
What?
So anyway, but I've done this day before. I did it today.
Yes.
So I can do it again. So
Yes.
I'm lying in my fitful sleep this morning. My wife gets up. I hear the door bang open. My car is a flat.
Oh, that's
So now we're down to what? So of course I'm taking care of that. That means.
Yeah.
But so I've got to get roadside assistance. I don't have a car. I've got to get both my kids to school. In between this, I have to get the dog walked, and we have the podcast this morning.
oh my God. I know.
So I call for the tow truck. I get an Uber, and then in the Uber, I'm trying to make plans for this rental car, but I can't get the rental car before the tow truck comes. So anyway, I navigate all this. I drop my kid off with the Uber. The tow truck comes as I finish walking my dog, and then I have to ride my bike to the rental car place to pick up the rental car, which I do. And guess what happens as I do that? It starts raining. So I'm biking in the rain.
Oh my God.
Into rain.
I get the rental car. I just get a call from the car dealership, and they say it's not one tire, it's 4 tires. It's going to be $1,900. But I just want to say the only reason I'm dealing with any of this is because you gave me the day off. Because if you hadn't, I'd just be at fucking work. So fuck you, Alex Sulkin, and your bamboo-ravaged asshole.
Oh, there's a clip for the best of. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm terribly sorry for your tragic day. It brings me no joy, despite the giggles and giant smile that I have on my face.
Yeah,
You know, to see a buddy struggling, there's really nothing worse.
Oh my God.
Oh well, that's an amazing day. Everything went wrong. Everything went wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
Except
we're not
for
done
Steph.
yet.
Yeah.
Because I really know that my kid is 80% gonna want to come home from school early.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the other shoe that hasn't dropped yet.
Yeah.
Is she feeling better? Or
She
is
says
this-
she is, but then, she's like, but
Yeah.
my tummy still hurts a little. And then at the first sign of anything she doesn't want to do at school, she's going to say, like, Dad, come pick me up.
Yeah. Oh
Nice, Dad.
God. Well, you cleared the lead story for that, which was well worth it. But
Yes.
another big thing that's happened since our last podcast, and I loved our last podcast, Goldie. I loved that topic
Yeah,
of
me
fixing
too.
the Oscars, and I heard a lot of people responding about it, which was nice. And if you want to send us an email about anything on the show, it's a typical disgusting display at gmail.com. We love reading your emails, so send us your thoughts.
Yeah.
All right, so we're excited. A little later, we're going to be talking with Vanessa Ramos, very talented writer, creator of Blockbuster, wrote on Superstore, comedy roasts, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We're excited to talk to her. And next week, Goldie, we have your buddy Sean Clements, very funny guy. Tell us a little,
yeah.
Looking forward
give
to
us a story on him.
So Sean Clements and his partner Hayes Davenport have a very popular podcast, way more popular than this one, called
that's not
Hollywood Handbook.
Yeah.
Hollywood Handbook. They've been doing it for years, and Sean also is a really talented writer and performer.
Yeah, good. We're excited for that. And something we're a little less excited for, we're going to jump into right now. Let's jump in to Johnny Jokes.
Whoa, from a diarrhea boat, here's Johnny.
Oh, boy. All right, let's jump right in here. Well, some sad news. Actor Robert Blake passed away last week at the age of 89.
He gone!
Yeah. Boy, it's sad when they go so old. He murdered somebody. All right. At a recent press conference, maybe you heard this, at a recent press conference, Mexico's president said that Mexico is safer than the United States. Yeah. At least that's what I think he said. It was hard to hear him through the trunk.
Oh.
He's being kidnapped in a car. All right. The U.S. Chess Federation is investigating allegations of sexual misconduct against a grand master. Yeah. Apparently, he took the queen without her consent.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
There you go.
There you go. Now I'm started. Nabisco. Here's a silly story. Nabisco has built a doomsday vault in northern Canada to preserve Oreos in the event of an apocalypse. This is true. Of course, if we ever need to use it, we'll be double fucked.
Oh.
Couple more. A new law in Germany will allow women to swim topless in public pools. Wow. Ich bin ein buying goggles. Terrible.
You've lost your mind.
That's good.
And finally, a two-parter. A Florida man, this is true and absolutely disgusting. A Florida man has contracted syphilis and herpes after mistakenly snorting a line of dried sperm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and what's worse, it's illegal for his nose to get an abortion. We joke around a lot here, but we all wish Don Jr. a speedy recovery.
Oh, there you found it. I was gonna say initially the premise was better than the punchline.
Thank you.
You found it.
All right, Johnny 2, take it away.
All right. Well, you did way too many, as we've established. Don't know why you did that to yourself, but here we go. Here are mine. Last week, former NBA All-Star Shawn Kemp was arrested in connection with a drive-by shooting. He also collected 15 drive-by rebounds.
Double.
Okay. A 5,000-mile blob of seaweed may soon land off the Florida coast. But don't worry, Governor Ron DeSantis has a plan. He's going to trick it into going to Martha's Vineyard. Semi-topical. And this week was the Academy Awards. And Brendan Fraser won an Oscar for portraying a 600-pound man in The Whale. And I thought this was nice. Fraser thanked food.
Don't you mean Kevin McCarthy?
I did. But a Hollywood contingent was upset that actress Anne Heche, who recently passed after driving her car into a house, was left out of the Oscars in memoriam. But the Academy heard the concerns and promises it will include her in next year's Bad Driverum.
Driverum.
I ruined it by bobbling the verbiage.
Yeah.
And finally, according to a new study, when it comes to penis size, 25% of men are showers, while 25% are growers. The other 50% swear this has never happened before.
Oh, boy. So much fun. So much torture.
It took a lot just to get to the starting line.
Back to zero. Oh, Johnny jokes, always so fun. What a fun part of our week. Well, here's a way more fun part of our week. Our guest is here, and we're incredibly excited. She is a very talented writer. She got started, we'll talk about that, but in the comedy roasts, in the trenches of the comedy roasts. She's worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Superstore. She created her own show, Blockbuster. It was on Netflix. It still is.
It is on Netflix.
It still is. Yeah. And you don't have to give me a quarter second, Goldie, for the mistake. Just a quarter second. A grace note, as you guitarists say. Please welcome, if it hasn't been ruined, the lovely and talented Vanessa Ramos. Vanessa, thank you for being. I said it right.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Everybody said it correctly. I don't like that I have to live up to Johnny jokes, especially when I don't know what these Johnny jokes are.
We
advertise me as more fun. Like, I'd rather have a affable like Seth Meyers, because then it's like, he comes in, you set his sort of tone, and now I'm like, okay, if you knocked it out of the park Johnny joke wise.
Well, trust me, we didn't. Goldie, you should have jumped in there, Goldie. Where's your jump in there? We didn't. We did not knock it out of the park, Johnny jokes wise. But I love that you picked up on affable. I never felt so bad for calling someone affable. And he was like, oh, there's that word again.
It was great.
So, Vanessa, according to my extensive research, you grew up in San Antonio, Texas. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, phew. I'm 1 for 1, Goldie.
Paying for the background check was worth it.
Now, is that, I ask a lot of our guests this question, is that as boring as it sounds to me?
Honestly, I mean, I can't, I'm not in your head, but probably. It's, I mean, I know there are some sports fans on here, but it was basically growing up, it's like the land of like the San Antonio Spurs and nothing else. And it's like once a year there's a rodeo, and it's kind of cool to see like pigs race or whatever. But yeah. And then it's like if, other neighboring cities would come on field trips to go to the Alamo, and then the McDonald's close to the Alamo.
Oh, you love having a McDonald's close to like a school destination. That's always sweet.
Speaking of the Alamo, we just wrote a Family Guy gag that you rejected.
Yeah.
It was you didn't even read it, did you?
He's like,
I don't remember any. Oh, yeah. It was people saying, don't worry, they'll remember something else.
These soldiers, it was the last soldiers at the Alamo, and they were saying to each other, God, I hope no one remembers how badly we got our ass kicked here. And then the other guy's like, why would they? Why would you want to remember this? We just got horribly defeated.
That's funny.
That's what I picture the Alamo as.
Yeah. Well, you can't, it's hard to top Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The Alamo was featured prominently in that. So, okay. So you grew up in San Antonio, and did you have like an inkling that from an early age that, hey, I'm kind of like a wise ass, and I'm not sure that I'm on the path that maybe my parents want for me? Or did you kind of figure that out a little later?
I think I figured it out later. I think first it was like, oh, I'm a weirdo. Like everyone's like out doing shit and I'm just like in the corner drawing dogs, like with way too much detail, like for much of my childhood.
So you're drawing dog dicks.
No, that was the part I was never good at. I bought the art books from Michael's that like really show you how to, individualize the different dog dicks. But I was like good at like eyes and ears and sort of the lame stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just kind of a quiet kid and I went to Catholic private school and didn't have like a ton of friends. So I just like drew a lot and then watched, like I got super into just watching stand up.
Yes.
And then still have ADD and there was like a thing where I could read something and it was like Texas and that wasn't a thing that was diagnosed that. And I could read something 3 times and just it wouldn't retain. But if something made me laugh, I could remember the wording, the cadence, the pauses, like it just made sense to me.
Oh, that's interesting because I feel like I suffer from a version of that. Does that have a name? Did you just say it?
I don't know what that exact thing is, but it's like mine was later diagnosed as like you have ADD, but I think part of ADD is you can get obsessive over certain things. Like some things just don't stick, but other things you really just when you should be doing something else. Like
Goldie, we have a version of this. How else could we explain Eddie Barzoon?
Yeah, there's things that knife their way into your brain. I mean, was there one stand-up in particular who you saw who it really spoke to you? Or...
you know what? It's actually like how I kind of got into all this. It was Greg Giraldo when I was in middle school. My mom saw that I took like an interest in comedy, and the only at the time, like the kind of comedy that came through San Antonio was like the Latino Laugh Festival, and it was just 15 dudes, mostly named Carlos. Greg Giraldo, who was I think kind of young, and they were like doing him a favor, and he was the first person I saw that was Latino, but it wasn't his entire identity as a comic. Like he just talked and did observational stuff. And I was like, oh, you can do that. And then, I just watched everything he was on, and I watched a ton of I was obsessed with like Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn.
Yeah,
and,
cool.
When Giraldo was on the roast, like I just remember like those were the jokes I would go back and be able to like recite and know like his pauses of like Carl like in the Saget roast with like Carl Reiner and like Joan's shitty watches runs. And so, yeah, like for me, like that was a big reason.
And it wasn't his backstory. He was a Harvard trained lawyer.
Correct. He was, I think like he passed the bar when all that, he was like practicing as a lawyer and then just I want to do stand up and started getting up and people were like, shit, he's good.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I guess I never thought of that because I think Goldie, we're a little spoiled sort of with Jewish comedians, Jewish stand-ups. There's a glut. And so you see the wide range, but I guess, yeah.
But there's an interesting thing where the last thing I kind of want to hear about is a lot of Jewish stuff. I'm up for a little bit of it, but I comedy, I don't know now. I don't follow stand-up as much. I don't go to clubs, but when we were coming up in the 90s, it was very segmented. Like every night it would be like Latino night one night. And the idea was that like you would only want to hear jokes about yourself by people who were like yourself, which I didn't subscribe to as a comedy fan, but I guess that's what gets people in. Do you find that you responded to him because he was like you or because he was like you, but then didn't talk about all the stuff that you would assume he would?
I don't know. I mean, I think the first thing I responded to is like, he was like me in that, like, I didn't have like interest in, sort of being like, so, how we all talk to our neighbors over like water, over this fence while watering plant. Like it was like, oh, you could just be a person. You don't have to talk. Cause I just remember there was like a joke that floated around forever that I think a couple people had versions of. That was like Chicano chickens lay eggs with the chorizo already in them. And it was like, oh, because the Mex, sure.
That's really funny.
We broke an Alec. So yeah, it was just refreshing to be. It's like, oh, this guy's just talking about how annoying something is. Like he's, like, and I love.
That's very Jewish, by the way.
Oh, I do. I was realizing, like, I appreciate a good rant, and I realized recently because Alec had posted something on Instagram that was just like, oh, look at these guys singing this cool thing, and I had messaged him. I was like, show me how to not hate this.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I was like, oh, in the like a typical disgusting display BuzzFeed quiz, I'm Goldie. Like that's in that moment.
Right, yes, you were. And I'll tell you exactly what that was. It was, and Goldie, I think I even forwarded it to you at some point. It was like 5 people sort of surrounding a large guitar singing the beginning of Carry On My Wayward Son by Kansas.
Yeah.
And when I happen to love the intro to that song, but I sent it, I put it on my feed. You sent me that message. Tell me how not to hate this. I'm like, I love it. How do you hate this? And you're like, it gives me, what did you say? Like Christian day camp flashbacks.
No, it's like strong. It was just like a gaggle of youth pastors that are like, look at this cool thing. We're going to use it to have people think we're cool. And then when they come in, we're going to hit them with the word of Christ. Like it's like there was something dubious about it. You're like, pure fun.
You're filling in a lot of blanks in that story that were not there. That probably only you filled in. Or maybe a lot of people like you filled that in.
Yeah, maybe.
So let's touch on that for a minute. You're sort of getting PTSD from the thought of youth pastors. So would you say your religious education did not really take root?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, good. That's a good short answer for the congressional hearing.
At what point did it stop taking root?
I think when I was like old enough to realize that it's like, so does the priest have to wear Prada shoes, or does like a different pair on every day? But then they're always asking for money.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. Like at some point too, because it's like they do the sermon and then like it was almost then the priest was like, okay, I'm going to sit down, and then someone would get up and like, so we'd really like to take a trip to Costa Rica to help the locals. Like there was something about it that was like a little bit off.
Yeah.
And then plus they were also, it was like, the Catholic that was very, it's like, well, homosexuality is a sin. I was like, yeah, I'm out. This is not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good exit indicator, I think. I mean, listen, we don't talk about like that stuff a lot on here, but obviously we could have a whole series of podcasts on why each religion is garbage in its own way. But yeah, so I can't imagine.
I feel like it would take less than 2 minutes to do exhaustively.
Yeah, that's probably right. That was like our idea that we were going to do that football podcast. And then it was like, this team's good. I like them. All right, moving on. Next game. All right, so let's flash forward a little bit. You have your San Antonio, your religious upbringing. You're a little different. And then at some point you start to get funny. And when does that happen? Like, you obviously came out to LA at an early age. How young were you when you came out here? Did you have a set goal in mind when you did?
Not really. I was early 20s when I came out to LA, and I kind of at the moment was just like, I need to get out of San Antonio, because from what I had seen, everybody either works at like USAA, which is like that insurance company out there, or Bank of America, and has like a couple kids. And like the few interactions I'd witnessed between people I went to high school and their spouses, I was like, oh, and they almost exclusively hate the person they're married to.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
None of
How
them,
early were people getting married there when you were growing up?
I mean, yeah, it was like early 20s. It was a couple that like didn't make it to 20 without getting married, and it's Texas.
Right.
I mean, is that what your parents wanted for you?
I think my mom probably did on some level, but my dad, my dad's an attorney who like put himself, like my mom helped him through law school, and he like, paid for stuff by working at like selling men's shoes.
Amazing.
It sounds Al Bundy-ish now when I say it back.
Right. No, that's amazing though.
You used to actually be able to make a living doing that.
My grandfather
I had a cousin who worked in a Jordan Mash and supported his kids just, going, these floor shams look great on you.
My grandfather was in the shoe, but they were always going to shoe shows. And they would pull pranks on each other. You know, it was sort of like he'd regale us with tales of putting like an entire fish on somebody's like carburetor, you know, and then closing the hood.
So comedy's in your
Show.
blood.
Oh yeah, exactly. The big fish, that's funny. It even begins with the letter F. Okay, so you come out to LA in your early 20s. You don't really have a plan. Now, I read in an article about you that one of your first big break was really being introduced to Jeff Ross. Is that correct?
Yes. That is a little bit humiliating story, surprisingly for me. But yeah, so as I've heard, you know, some of you on this Zoom have failed at stand-up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's me. Goldie has not conceded defeat yet, but I have
fair
failed.
enough. God bless. So yeah, I did that, and I was always a person where people are like, "You're a great writer," which is like you suck on stage, and I did because I hadn't figured out my anxiety, and it was a whole thing. So I would write for people when they would do like Chelsea Lately and just needed like quick sort of, you know, topical jokes. And one of them got asked to submit for, it was like The Burn with Jeff Ross. And yeah, I got a meeting on it, and this was like my first ever, and in retrospect, the packet was a mess. Like I just didn't know what I was doing, but he was like, the jokes are funny. I got a meeting. And the night before, I was having a celebratory Swanson's turkey pot pie, as one does. I was pulling it out of the microwave, and it flipped over on my hand. And it was like the pot pie you don't think about it, but the pot pie innards like stick to your knuckles.
Oh,
I had like 2nd-degree burns, and then of course it was on my shaking hand. And I had to go through line to meet with like Jeff Ross and his managers and whoever on the show. And immediately he was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And then I pull up this thing that's all bandaged up. I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" And I was like, "So is my grievous Swanson's part." Like I like power through the story, and they're like, "Okay, well, shall we?" Like in that moment, I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and not give myself the job. So I went in.
I mean, you didn't say something like, "I literally am roasting myself." Or
That's
because
good.
in that moment I couldn't think of anything else other than here we are. This is the end of my career. Is he'll remember, like, will I, you know, if this goes well, I'll be known as the pot pie girl. If it doesn't, like maybe
So
I'll.
this was your 8 Mile. You thought that this was your big opportunity.
This was, yeah.
Oh,
I wrote lots of rhymes on a bus to get there.
yes.
But yeah.
Well, instead of throwing up spaghetti, you're just splattering chicken on the pile.
I also feel like this is the moment where people are like, "Swanson's, if you want to sponsor." But
I feel like 80% of their pies probably wind up like burning people.
Anyway,
They are a heat bomb. Yeah, no, we can't get advertising on this podcast to save our life. So Swanson's, we love you. They refuse to get in bed with us. I use an M. In bed.
Oh, like embed.
In bed.
The
Yeah,
ads.
that's a little
Oh,
pun
boy.
right there.
yeah.
All right, so it was embarrassing.
Okay, so it was embarrassing. Meeting didn't go well, and he was like, "Look, I think you're funny. I'll pass your stuff along for the roast." So I was like, "Okay." I was like, "He's, you know, I love Jeff. He's high all the time, so he's probably not going to do that."
Right.
And I was waitressing at IO West at the time, which was like the improv theater in Hollywood, and I was very surly, I may add. And then I just got a call out of the blue one night when I was working, and they're like, "In the next 48 hours, you need to write 3 pages of jokes on 3 different celebrities. Goodbye."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who are the celebrities?
Okay, so they didn't give you any, and I was like trying to guess what they wanted. So it's like, okay, at that time it was like 2012 or something. I was like, I did Lindsay Lohan, Kim Kardashian, and then for me, I did Morgan Freeman because I'm like, okay, if I don't, at least I'll have fun writing one.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't know what got me the job, but yeah.
Oh.
Then after that, I sent them in, and then it took a while, and then I finally get a call like a month later from the producer Joel Gallen, and he was like, "Hi," he's like, "Joel Gallen here. Who's your favorite comedian?" I was like, "Greg Giraldo," and he goes, "Well, I don't know if you know this. I directed Midlife Vices." I was like, "No shit." And he goes, "Okay, well, the reason I'm calling is I'd like to offer you the job if you still want it." And then that was that.
Oh,
That's
so
amazing.
awesome. Yeah,
So
you
cool.
never forget that moment. It's special, you know, however it comes, and it's always some strange story. I know for me it was through my old writing partner Wellesley, who already had a job on Craig Kilborn, and same deal of sending them a pack and then waiting. And I remember I got the call on my dad's birthday in 1999 that I had gotten the job, and I remember calling my grandfather and him yelling like off screen to his elderly wife, like, Helene, Alex, a contract writer at CBS. It was like I had been hired in 1951 suddenly. But that's such a great moment. And so now...
So did you just, at that point, put your arms into a searing Mama Celeste pizza to celebrate, or what did you do?
I think I actually went and got sushi. I was like, I have to get a celebratory meal. But otherwise, and I think someone talked me into it, because otherwise I'm a scumbag. I would have happily been like, yep, let's get that Mama Celeste.
Well, how long from arriving to LA to getting that call was there?
6 years? 7?
Oh, wow. So you had plenty of time to think about that you had failed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what was that like? I mean,
look
what were those 6 years
Goldie,
like?
Look how Goldie perks up.
No, were you feeling as though, oh, this is definitely going to happen for me and I'm on my way and it's all paying off? Or are you sort of like bussing drinks around the Improv Olympic thinking you're funnier than everyone on stage, but for some reason you're not going to make it?
You know what? I actually hadn't thought that far. Like, I was still it's like, shit, I don't know. I honestly didn't think that I could be a writer because she dumb. I went to
ADD.
No, I went to like Texas State in San Marcos, Texas, and their claim to fame, like they used to be called Southwest Texas, but then they were in like Maxim magazine for like top 10 party schools, so they rebranded, and they're like Lyndon B. Johnson went here.
What an asshole he was.
If you look up San Marcos, Texas, what their claim to fame for a while was they had a theme park called Ocarina Springs, and it was like the main attraction was Ralph the swimming pig, and you'd get in a glass and just little pig swim.
There's a lot of pig-related activity down in San Antonio.
Activities, but yeah, I think he, R.I.P. I do want to say he maybe drowned me like arthritis or something. But
oh God,
so this is where I come from. This is my educational institution. So I was like, yeah, you had to have gone to, it's like Harvard and even like NYU something. So it was like it was just never. I didn't know writing was an option. Yeah. I just I liked. I watched a lot of stand-up. I like joke writing. I did stand-up, so I could see how my jokes did. And then once I was like, oh, I can actually get into writing. Yeah. I did. I think in the meantime, I was like, okay, I hadn't admitted defeat because I was like, I don't really know where I'm going to land. I'm like, I'm just going to, see how it goes out here. And then at some point, if it's like nothing's happening, I'll move back to San Antonio and marry someone I hate.
Well, we're glad you didn't have to do that. I'm a little fascinated because I feel like I was, as a stand-up, what you said about your stand-up was so relatable to me. I felt like in lieu of actually working on an onstage persona or putting energy and effort into that, I instead fell back into the basically like, I'm going to be like Janine Garofalo and read off my little notebook, and I don't care what you think. But of course, I didn't.
But that was a very 90s persona.
Totally 90s.
That was almost the Ethan Hawke reality bites thing that you were doing in your corduroy and your little V-neck
look
sweater.
Look at you. You can't, dude. Stop obsessing about how I look.
With these kind of like borderline like pot voice jokes.
That pot voice was legit. That was legit.
Borderline.
Yes, but I'm picturing you, Vanessa, like on stage. Like, did you ever watch Daria? That show on MTV?
A comparison that I've gotten a lot.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
See, that was instantly brought to mind for you doing stand-up. I'm picturing low energy, funny jokes, but you're not doing a song and dance up there.
No, I wasn't doing a song and dance, but I honestly think like I hadn't worked through my anxiety. Like I could feel, it's like, okay, if my hand was shaking a little, I'm like, oh, I felt like I was going like this.
Yeah.
Then by the time I actually got confident on stage, I was working with, I don't know if you ever crossed paths with Jesse Joyce when you guys did.
Yep, I know Jesse.
Yeah. So
cool.
We were working on the James Franco roast, and he and I were just like in a room writing jokes together, and he dying to go do like a shitty strip mall in Grand Rapids. And in that moment I was like, I will never love stand-up that much.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, okay, I'm a writer. I'm just going to stick with this writing thing. And
what was the best experience you had doing stand-up?
I think it was like one of the early, it was Hell Yes Fest in Austin that was fun. But it's weird because now when you say it, like, I think that's the best it went. But in retrospect, what the time I was the most fucking mortified, I think is it makes me laugh now, I see as the best time, was when I absolutely fucking bombed my face off at the Improv on Refried Fridays.
Yeah.
Just because, okay, so it's like I went up, I did jokes. The minute I got on stage, two ladies in front go like they just hated me on sight.
Oh.
I did my
I
time.
got a lot of that. I got a lot of that. Yeah.
Like, oh, thank God I got the light. So I go off, get like, who cares of an applause. And then the guy, because it was like the old showroom, so you go this way, and there's a guy, and he's trying to shove a puppet into a suitcase full of boas. Like, he's like struggling.
Oh.
He went up after me. He put himself into a giant balloon to a Mark Anthony song and fucking killed. Like, got a standing ovation. He had just like, I see his face to this day going like, woof. And yeah, and I just like went to the bar, did a shot of tequila, and like two of the hackiest guys I'd ever seen. It's like, you gotta dumb it down. Like, I just unsolicited advice from just these epic hacks, and I hated it at the time, but now I'm just like, yeah, I can't help but think it's funny.
Yeah, no, that's a healthy
lot funny
attitude.
there.
And also
Yes.
you're sort of having the last laugh in that situation, which is always the best.
Well, we don't know.
Oh yeah, we don't know.
Life is long, and this guy could be in a
Could be coming back.
balloon with
The
Mark
balloon
Anthony.
The balloon guy's taking over for Corden. Did you not hear that?
I'm so gullible. I was like, he is.
Oh, the Corden disaster story. Oh my God. All right, that sounds hilarious. But I'm curious a little bit about how did the writing for the roasts work? Were you guys, you sort of described a scene where it sounded like you were together. I would imagine that maybe the writers would kind of just go off separately and write their, 40, 50 jokes, submit them, and whatever gets on, gets on. But did you guys actually sit in a room together and work on these things?
At points, like a lot of, and it also depended who was like head writing it, or my first one, it was 6 of us, and we would just like, we had windowless offices at Radford and just sit there for 12 hours writing jokes on whoever was booked. So it was like, okay, we have Jane Lynch and Roseanne, and until someone else's book, you just go in every day, and it's like, Jane Lynch and Roseanne, or you'd have these.
But you're not going, I'm writing for Whitney Cummings roasting Jane Lynch. You're just saying, like, I'm writing for a comic, a generic comic roasting.
So you
Jane
stockpile jokes, and then someone puts them into like a booklet that's like Roseanne fat, Roseanne irritating. And then, so when they start to book people or like comics or whoever, I know she's more than fat and irritating, guys. But so then it's like, okay, so then they would have someone, and if you're not a comic, then they would say, okay, well, if it's an actor, then their angle, like before I came on, they did like Kate Walsh was on, and she plays a doctor, so she's prescribing things, and that's like sort of her vehicle for jokes. So we would start piecing together from like the monologue, first of all, for the host, or like the intro stuff, and then other, non-comics. And then if the comics would usually write their own stuff, but if they needed, like they would need Jeff Ross jokes because he had been roasted so many times, there wasn't like new ways to call him.
Right.
That's encouraging, though, to hear they wrote their own stuff.
Yeah.
That makes it all feel like less a fraud, because
Right.
I enjoyed those roasts, and I wrote for Seth for the ones he hosted, and I always thought it was really fun.
Yeah,
But it was only fun to write for one person. I wouldn't have wanted to write for everyone.
Yeah, that's rough because then some people send it back, or I remember.
Because if Kate Walsh is kicking a joke back, I'm not reacting well.
I remember, so Shaq came in for Bieber, and he was like, he wanted all of these like wordy jokes, and it was like, my guy, like you can't tell him because he's gigantic. So he would pick. They're like, he wrote his own jokes on note cards, and then his manager was like, just go through them and pick the ones you like, and I just like. You could do this one. I mean, that's that's 4 of us getting drinks for that whole story. But so Shaq wanted one that was for Bieber. On the Bieber one, and it was like, if you type Justin Bieber into Google, the third result is dead. Now, I don't have a joke for that. I just think it's kind of cool that Google can see 5 years into the future.
Yeah.
So that's not a thing that he was able to like say properly. And so that just sort of went, but he was like, so that joke got held from anyone else. And then he did it. And then, of course, they were like, and that's cut.
That's too bad because that's funny.
Yeah.
It was like that. I think we had the most fun writing because, you write all the hard jokes about appearances.
Yeah.
And then after a while, the non-jokes and then things that are just devastating facts become like the hardest jokes.
Yes.
Yes.
I did the intros for, I guess it was for Bieber. And one of them, they're like, Ludacris, you have to plug his new album. So it was like, his new album, Ludiverse, will hopefully be his last. Please welcome the most popular rapper of 2001, Ludacris. Somehow those always feel worse than like calling him like a shitty rapper or actor.
Yes.
Well, there was also, I mean, when you were there, you used to be able to really dig into whatever stereotype you wanted to, and it was sort of viewed as a safe haven for that type of joke. Like, I wonder if now one of the reasons we don't have them is sort of the fun of it was how risque it was and the fact that you knew everyone was getting a pass. But now people wouldn't get a pass, so why would they do it? And you feel like you can't enjoy it because you'll be judged in turn. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's even there's jokes that I feel like I couldn't. I mean, most of which that like I couldn't talk now that at the time was like, oh, this was a fun burn.
Yeah, or
Right.
as Goldie, as you said, I think in our Family Guy room that if you tell a few jokes like that, then the next thing you know, you're opening for Kyle Rittenhouse. It's a CPAC event.
No, I mean that's what it is now. That you could do that kind of stuff very successfully for an audience that you hated, who didn't have any ironic distance from it. Like they didn't realize you were just kind of doing it because it's a forum for doing that, but you don't actually think that way. Now they'd be like, well, we all think that way, and you're just saying it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a tough spot.
Yeah.
So that sounds like, as Goldie said, I mean, that's a really pure form of writing to when you start, you are just writing jokes.
You got to be good to do that. You have to be a real comedy person.
Yes, absolutely you do. Because that's the thing that it separates, we see it all the time. I'm sure you see it in the different places you've worked. There are, frankly, some writers who get away with being a writer just because they kind of talk like a writer. And then after a while, you start to think to yourself, like, this person hasn't pitched a real joke. Like, I don't know that I've ever heard them pitch a real joke. And
I call them big sweater scolds.
What does
They're
that
just
mean?
wearing just bigger sweaters than you're used to seeing, and they're kind of poo-pooing your jokes, and we can do better. And it's like, well, then do better.
Yeah.
Do anything. And it's like, well, we need to dig in on story, and it's like, we're only digging on story because you're not funny.
Yeah, exactly right. Oh God. Yeah. Thank God at Family Guy's story matters very little. That's to all of our advantage. Okay. So you've come out of this sort of, high altitude training for comedy, let's say, in the roast world. Now, does that lead directly to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or were there stops along the way? How did you make the jump from roasts to, televised half hour?
Yeah, that I kind of didn't know any. Like, I was like happy to just be like writing jokes and doing these like Comedy Central gigs. Like, I did a couple runs on At Midnight and stuff like that. And then my manager told me, he was like, I'm not going to, close this deal on the next roast until you write a sample. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I kind of just, it was super joke heavy. Like the story was not there, but it was super joke heavy. And even like the action, like there was just jokes everywhere. And then that's how I got Border Town, which made sense because it was super joke heavy. And story was not something that was super important when I was
So was that a spec of something, or was it an original?
Oh, it was an original.
Okay, cool. So you
Cool.
packed your original with jokes, and then you get a job on Border Town. And for listeners who don't know, Border Town was created and run by a longtime Family Guy writer, Mark Henteman, who I'm so thrilled that you got the chance to work with him because you've experienced Mark, and I'm sad Goldie had to step out to feed his dog for a second.
Yeah.
But Goldie,
I want to play a sound cue.
Ha ha!
that's Mark Henteman. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real laugh of his. And
I love that.
and one of the things you might know about Mark is, and did you know this? Did you know he was struck by lightning?
Yes, I insist though that people must, for the record, let it state that it was while holding a Shamu umbrella.
Yes, because he was in the parking lot of like Six Flags or SeaWorld in Ohio. But so what was that? So that's your first experience in a writer's room with kind of a show creator on a half-hour show. Did you feel like you were kind of observing? Did you feel over your head? Did you feel like, oh, I totally get this. I love it.
I think all of those at different times. I think first I thought I was observing, but then also the staff was super bottom heavy. So it was like, okay, you just gotta, if you're not jumping in and pitching, then it's just like Alex Carter not being able to take a sip of water. Cause it's just sort of.
I love it. I love that. We're getting all the references now. So for our fans, Alex Carter is another longtime Family Guy writer. Very funny guy. But yeah, is because he couldn't sip water because of his carpal tunnels or what?
No, that was something. But I mean, he's just like pitching he was just like pitching a lot, like trying to fit, because he was the number 2.
Yeah.
And I think it was like bottom heavy. And so a lot of people were new, and it was like.
Is that what bottom heavy
Yeah,
means?
you
What
have
does that
to.
mean?
Yeah. You have to. I mean, I experienced this the first time I was running, both times I was running a show, but I was startled by it the first time, which was that if no one is talking, I should probably be talking to facilitate more talking. But then when that doesn't work, you've already started talking and you have to keep talking. And I honestly think this is why 50% of people get in trouble for saying the wrong thing. It's not that they're bad people. It's that they have to talk so much. They eventually say really stupid shit that they probably normally wouldn't even say. But it's a sheer quantity of brain emptying that then they indict themselves.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that. I believe
That makes sense.
I believe that. So
Talk for a day without saying anything you shouldn't have said.
no,
For a
it's
full day.
it's impossible. It's impossible. No,
And wait, can you guys explain what bottom heavy means for those who don't know what that means?
yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
So it just meant, the staff was mostly lower level. So it was like younger, less experienced writers. Like ours, I believe half the staff were staff writers. So,
Okay.
not as competent pitching or, somewhere like on the quieter side. And I think that's like Goldie was saying, it's like you just sort of have, especially when you split up into 2 rooms and it's like Alex and then a bunch of staff writers, then it's just like, that person has to do all the talking.
Well,
I
after
see.
doing the roast, were you
Yeah.
frustrated by the pace of that?
Kinda. I mean, I think it was also kind of refreshing because the roast was like every day. It was like, okay, hurry up. You were just like cranking stuff out. And it was also one day they're like, okay, someone talk to Ice-T's agent. He might do it. Write a bunch of Ice-T jokes. And then the next day they're like, he's for sure not doing it. You wasted your time.
Right.
Nice to just sort of be like, okay, like let's figure out where, like now it does drive me. Like when I was running my show, I was like, okay, I need to know where we're going. Like I need
Right.
to map out. It's like we're, starting here and then where we're going and then filling in midpoints because all of this like sort of, blue skying to
Yeah.
know makes me crazy.
Well, I could have helped there. Let's say open on exterior Blockbuster. Is that get us started?
Yeah.
You're hired.
All right, good.
I would
Show
go
it to you. It would be
ex-
awesome.
exterior parking lot. I would not reveal the Blockbuster
Oh,
in the
okay.
opening.
See, look at this. We got a conversation started. We got it started.
We see a large PetSmart.
Pet stupid, Goldie would have pitched. So you not only did you have this is your first half-hour experience with the talented Mark Henteman, but you also had an experience that we've all had of a show that didn't go.
Yeah.
And what was that? Did you feel like when that was coming to an end, like were you hopeless or were you like, oh, I know I can do this now, let's get another?
It was more of like, yeah, I guess that's how it goes. This was my first time doing animation and it just like, cause some of us stayed on again, cause it was lower level heavy. through animatics and color. So we'd been through that whole process. And when it ended, I honestly just went back to at midnight. It kind of felt like, well, the Comedy Central door is always open.
Right.
So I wasn't like as freaked out. And then I went back there. And then when I was on at midnight again is when I got Superstore.
Okay.
That's
So
perfect.
did I fuck up Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or did you come back for the reboot and it was later?
It was later. I
Okay.
came, I think it was like 1 year after they moved to NBC. I came on season 6. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right, so I had that out of
Cool.
order. All right, so Superstore was on NBC, and NBC, while people love to kind of joke around about how shitty network TV is doing, and it's certainly true, NBC felt like at least they tried to push things. Like they would really try to flex what little muscle they had, left over from their 90s, early 2000s heyday to say like, hey, we're still the special comedy place and come check this out. So Superstore lasted, I believe, was it 3 seasons, 3 or 4?
No.
No, I left after season 3, but I
Okay.
think it did 6.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow. I didn't know it was that long. Well, I knew
Yeah.
your run was 3.
There you go.
But did you have a good time with the team there? I know we knew a couple of those writers, Bridget and Vicky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're sweet. I like them.
Yeah. No, I honestly, Superstore is where I learned story, because I think it's like I sort of came out
Cool.
of Border Town and then went back to sort of more joke writing, Comedy Central stuff. And then season 1, I was, I think, having that moment of like being lost again, because it wasn't bottom heavy, and it was like kind of feeling like, okay, my brain hasn't quite, like the pieces haven't fit together, watching like the cards on the board and all of that. But somewhere midway through, like maybe towards the end of season 2, I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're all leading up to, the act breaks and everything fell into place. And then by season 3, it like really clicked.
Yeah.
And did
that's
you
good.
enjoy finally getting to see the actors do it?
Sometimes.
There she is. There's
That was
that
awesome.
on-stage persona. Yeah.
That's just
Okay. So
Truth.
I think you and I are a lot alike. in
yeah,
that
I'm
think
respect.
starting to
so.
get that.
The BuzzFeed quiz.
Start-
That's why.
So okay, 3 seasons on Superstore, and then is Brooklyn Nine-Nine next?
No.
Oh,
This
where
is
did-
okay. So this, I'm just messing with you at this point because research. Because then I left Superstore, and then the following week I started on Crashing on HBO, and then I
Oh.
started on Big Mouth, and I was doing 3 days a week on Crashing, 2 at Big Mouth, like an insane person.
Wow.
That's
Well, those
really
are
incredible.
2 great shows. Like I
Shit.
loved Crashing. I feel like
Yeah.
Crashing did not get the attention that it deserved, and I think part of it, and we've talked about this on the show. We've had Pete Holmes on, and most shows or movies about stand-up, if you've ever done stand-up, seem like total bullshit. They just don't seem even close to what stand-up was like. Whereas Crashing felt the closest, to what actual stand-up is like. Was that a fun experience for you? Did you get to like delve into your stand-up nightmares, or were there specific marching orders and it's like, we're writing this today?
I mean, because Pete was in the room and it was his, like, based on his stuff, like, I think a lot of it came from him. But we would, write some of the stand up for, when you would see some of the other characters. But for me, Crashing was probably my favorite thing I worked on, solely for, we shot at the Cellar, which I just knew like what that meant. And I would hang out there at night, and like the guy at the door would, Colin Quinn would pull up a seat at the table. Like, and I got to, in between scenes, like talk to Colin a lot, and he would tell me old Geraldo stories. And it was
Right.
just
Man.
like my sort of like stand up as a kid, like dream of, I had done the Oscars with Rich Voss, and then I met his wife, Bonnie McFarlane, who I loved and still do, even though she refers to me as her assistant. But yeah, like it was just sort of my like, New
So-
York dream.
You were living in New York, but Big Mouth wasn't in New York.
Okay, no. So I went to New York for shooting for 3 months. I lived in a hotel like a fancy child. That it's actually pretty
Nice.
depressing if you do for 3 months and it rains every day.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I was doing when we were writing. Big
So
Mouth.
that can be intoxicating, though, to feel like you're so in demand, isn't it? where it's like, they need me on this show, and then you can play them off against each other for the stuff you don't want to do. Like you could go, I'm sorry, there's a Big Mouth record, I have to be there if you want to get out of the crashing room, and then you're at Big Mouth, it's boring, and you go, Rich Voss is coming in tonight, they need some stand-up for him, it's an emergency. I mean, do you traffic in that, or were you
No,
good about it?
I wish I had the self-esteem for that. I think as a kid I was like picked last in like everything, athletic and not. Like I was very much of like, oh, okay, it's like, yeah, I'll go over here. It's like they want, I just wanted people to like me.
You were wanted.
Yes.
That's always nice. So crashing Big Mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you did you get to be in the Big Mouth room for your days? Or was that at this point, this is before the pandemic, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I was in the room. I would only come in like twice a week.
Nick Kroll is one of those guys who just makes me laugh at the sight of him. Like I'm already laughing when I see him. Although History of the World Part 2 is putting that to the test. I'll just say off the record, we can cut that. So that's a great 2-job experience. And now I'm kind of to the point where I don't even give a shit about Brooklyn Nine-Nine anymore. I don't think you even worked there. I don't care if you did or when it was, but just humor me. Was that next?
Yes, that actually was next.
Wow.
Well done.
Congratulations.
So that's a different kind of experience too, because then you're coming in on like a going concern. Like it's a show that has a level of popularity. And did that feel different for you, stepping into something that was, already like, we got it. We know how this is supposed to be.
Oh yeah, because I think it was like it took a couple months for me to just be okay with hearing. Yeah, we actually someone had pitched that episode, season 4 for this thing, and we tried to break a version of that, and just being like, yep, because they had. I mean, I can't imagine someone going into Family Guy with as many episodes as you guys did.
No,
It happened yesterday.
It happens all. In fact, we aired a new episode that Seth called me and he's like, "You realize we've done that?" And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, we did a whole Castaway episode, like 15." I'm like, "Oh, geez, we really got to start figuring this out." But yeah, it is a different kind of world there. Now, I also want to talk about when we've had Morgan Murphy on here before. She's done very well in the writing world, and as have you. What do you think of yourself like? Oh, I'm a woman writer, and I'm sort of at the tip of the spear right now, or have you just felt like I'm me, I have my unique point of view, and people just kind of take it or leave it? Like I know this is like sort of it's been a hot button issue for a while because there were never enough women in comedy writing. But it seems like you've experienced a high level of success. So is there any secret to it? Did you ever get frustrated by the whole process, or has it been pretty good for you?
I think kind of early on, even when I was like doing stand-up and stuff, it was very, I'd be at clubs or something and someone would be like, hey, there's a lady around, like I'm delicate,
Yeah.
So I think I would feel like people thought of me as like, a lady writer. And I just sort of was like, okay, I'm just going to keep my head down and do the work. Because I also think that there's assumptions made too, as like a woman of color, that it's like, okay, well, that's why you get this opportunity. That's why this. I'm like, I can't control any of that. So I'm
Right.
just
True, yeah.
write my stuff, let my work speak for itself.
Well, I know that people who have worked with you all say great things about you, which is really the ultimate compliment. And I think Goldie will back that up, that when we have worked with people and then they have nice things to say about working with us, like that's as good as it gets. And I know that people speak glowingly about you. So don't spend another minute worrying. I'm sure I just cured all your anxiety. It's all gone now.
Yeah, I feel great now.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think at first, like I was very worried about it. And then I was like, okay, I can control what I can control. And then I don't know, I kind of I did this panel years ago, and I'm just kind of the way I've always wanted to think about it, especially as like a joke writer, because there was less women, when I started, was like that scene in A League of Their Own when like Tom Hanks offers Gina Davis the shoe, and it's just like, she's not a lady ball player, she's a ball player, she's an equal. Like that's all I've ever sort of wanted out of those joke writing rooms.
Oh, that's very well said. A good comp. Well, Vanessa, you have been so generous with your time. We appreciate it. It is great talking to you, and we wish you all the continued success. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I miss you
Yeah.
guys already. Some more than
Thanks for coming.
Come back
That was
when
great.
something makes you angry and you want to talk about it.
honestly, I'd love to.
All right, boy.
Oh, that was great.
What a fun interview. She was
Yeah.
great to talk to. But now let's get into a portion of the show we like to call Top 5. Top 5. Oh, so soothing. Take us away, us. All right. So the top 5 this week, it was my category. Top 5 action movies of the 1980s. This is my wheelhouse. This is growing up here.
Yes,
So I'm just
big
going to
time.
dive right in. At number
Dive
5,
right in.
I have RoboCop. Boy, was
Ooh.
RoboCop a fun movie and tons of action. Oh,
I've never seen it.
you what?
I know. I don't know.
JC,
I don't know how it escaped.
Stop the record right now. Go watch it. RoboCop.
Does it still hold up?
Oh yeah, yes. It's a very
Wow.
fun movie. Really
Okay.
fun. Great 80s action. A lot of.
Why would
it's
you
actually
make the robot
very
a
funny.
cop first? It's like, wouldn't you try a robot fireman? Just something where it doesn't have guns?
It's because RoboCop sounds way better than Robo Fireman. Number 4, I have, and this movie is actually better than your run-of-the-mill action movie. There's a lot to this movie. First Blood, the very first
Rambo?
Rambo movie. Now
Yeah.
Rambo 2, which came out a little later, was more of a traditional 80s action movie with lots of, shoot 'em up moments. But First Blood, the first one, is a really great kind of psychological story, but it is also an action movie. So, number 3, Predator.
Yes.
Predator was so good. And by the way, 2 future governors in Predator. Let's just shout it out for
Oh,
that.
weird.
How cool is that?
That is weird.
And that scene where there's nothing more 80s than that scene where all 5 of them are in a row just shooting up the jungle. All they're doing is blowing away trees with giant guns. That's the 80s in a nutshell. Number 2, some might have thought this was number 1. Number 2 is Die Hard. What a great movie. Nothing
Yes.
more needs to be said about this.
The Christmas movie.
Christmas movie. Number 1, this is probably my favorite movie of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Boom.
wow.
We got overlap.
That's
list,
my
yeah.
list. JC, I think, are you?
I'm next week, so
You're
I'll go
next week.
last.
Okay, so Goldie is next.
Okay. Number 5, I am going to go with Full Metal Jacket.
Ooh.
Ooh, awesome.
Wow. Okay, that's a great
That's
choice. That's a
great,
great
yeah.
movie.
Damn.
Number 4, I am going to go with Top Gun,
Yeah,
Ooh,
yes.
nice.
which is because of the sequel, I think, increased in stature.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And the soundtrack.
Number 3,
Ooh.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Which means that here's the draft picks that slipped through that you didn't have.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Number 2, Roadhouse.
That's a good choice.
It's a very good movie, and it imparts the timely lesson that it's worth it, even if several people have to die to save a shitty dive bar.
I just remember when he's
That's
getting
the moral.
That's true, right? A few we gotta break a few eggs to make this omelet.
Yeah.
but there was also that moment in one of the final fight when he's fighting that guy where the guy says, "I used to fuck guys like you in prison," and it was supposed to be a tough line. I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened here?
It's also a Family Guy writer, Artie Johan, always points this out, that at the end of the movie he has sex in the same pond where he killed a guy. And it wasn't that much time in between.
He was able to put it behind him.
Yeah. So number 1, and I think you'll probably dispute the genre on this, but it is an action movie in my mind, Naked Gun.
Oh, wow. Oh, I see a thumbs
Yeah,
down.
not
from
an
that.
action movie.
Oh, wow.
No,
Well, I say it is.
it's a comedy detective movie. All right. Anyway, so aside from number 1,
Yeah.
great list.
That is a great list. Okay, so my number 5 Empire Strikes Back
Yeah.
is my number 5.
Sure.
Number 4, I love this movie. Not everybody loves this movie. Blade Runner. This is
Oh, that's great.
one
But
of my
you're
top.
going sci-fi. But
Yeah, but that's true.
but it's okay. I
Yeah.
love Blade Runner. It's
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
like
If
one
I
of
had
my
known we could just
all-times.
pick any movie, I might have picked Blade Runner.
It's an action or movie, isn't it? Remember when Daryl Hannah does the flips and kicks and there's some good fights.
There's some
good fights.
flips. There are some good flips. You're right.
Number 3, Terminator.
Oh, I thought you were going to say terms of endearment. Because any movie can go in. Yes, Terminator is excellent. An excellent sci-fi movie, Terminator.
That's an action movie, isn't it? Uh-oh. Number 2, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There you go. And we've arrived.
And my number 1, you're going to also be, is Aliens.
That's good. Aliens qualifies.
Okay,
I believe in aliens. All right. Partially
Okay.
good lists.
Okay, my top 5 for next week is top 5 bass lines.
Oh, yeah. I feel some Stu influence here.
Well, I'm also a
Yeah.
bass player, so I was thinking, it's music, and I know it's kind of annoying, but I feel like we talk about bass lines a lot. Like, I've been going back and listening to old episodes, and even Goldie referenced a bass line to a song, and that's what made me think about it.
Oh, Goldie,
Yeah.
this is your fault. You hear that?
I don't remember ever talking about bass lines
Yeah,
once.
you do. There was a whole decade where you couldn't stop talking about bass lines.
It was an episode that we actually didn't air. I might cut this part out, but we did. It was one episode we didn't air, and I was going through to see if I could find a clip.
Was that when Goldie and I talked about sitting courtside on the bass line?
Oh no!
Okay, good.
Come on. It was the episode about partners.
Oh, Patness.
Patness.
Right. All right. Well, that sounds like a fun one for next week. And now let's end the show like we always do on a high note. Oh, Tom and Max, thank you very much. I want to shoot out my high note, which is on last Friday night, our friend John Viner, who's not asked to be a part of this podcast, took me to see Billy Joel and Stevie
That's
Nicks
nice.
at SoFi. I had never been there. And boy, they both sounded great. Their
amazing.
voices were both excellent. And one of the things I love most in life is my radio station on Cape Cod. And this was like I was listening to that station because every song was like, yep, this one, radio, great, love it, love it. There was a very funny detail that I have to add, which is, so Stevie Nicks opened and Billy Joel came out on stage to perform Stop Dragging My Heart Around with her. And then later in the show, Stevie Nicks came back out and performed a song with Billy Joel. Both times after they were done singing, Billy Joel went in for an aggressive hug and kiss, which Stevie Nicks wanted no part of.
Wow.
You could just
Dodge.
watch the placement of her hands in front of her to kind of just hold him at bay. And I could only,
Why?
all I could
Weird.
think of was Stevie Nicks is probably saying to herself, how the fuck am I opening for this dork? Because listen, I love Billy Joel and I think he's awesome and one of the great songwriters of all time. But I think that Fleetwood Mac was cool and Billy Joel was not. And they
Right.
kind of came out around the same time. So I think Stevie Nicks, may have slept with everybody in rock and roll, but not Billy Joel.
And not
Billy.
now, certainly.
Yeah, not now, Billy Joel. Anyway, that was a very fun night. Thank you, John
Yeah.
Viner.
Oh, that sounds nice. I'll go. My high note was Everything Everywhere All at Once, just sweeping. I mean, I had texted you, Alec, that
Yeah.
every time it won, I would just start quietly sobbing, just for me to see. It's a conversation that's always being had, but seeing the representation, thinking about if I was a kid at this time and this was happening, I'm getting choked up thinking about it now, but it was something that I needed to see as a kid. So I think it's amazing that this generation gets to see it now.
Yes. Yeah. And as we talked about, you guys stepped right on Angela Bassett's head to get what you want.
Oh my God.
Congratulations.
Well, this is going to make my high note seem all the more poignant. I finally found the right pillow.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
That's
You need
huge,
to
by the way.
Share the information.
That's huge.
So I don't mean the sleeping pillow. I mean the pillow when you're in bed and you're reading, you're watching TV. It's a
Yes.
U-shaped pillow called a Yogibo.
Oh,
And it's
wait,
the
I've heard of
perfect
this.
height
How do you spell it?
for a
Yogibo?
life of laziness. Yogi,
Yogi.
like the bear, bo, B-O. And I'll tell you, my sloth-like behavior has become even more comfortable
Yes.
to the Yogibo. This is not sponsored content.
No.
Not
God
yet.
forbid we should
No
have
one
any
will
of that.
touch us.
I know. No.
No, I haven't even heard ads lately.
I know. They've stopped embedding.
I know.
All right. Well, those are great high notes. And what a fun show. Thank you, Vanessa Ramos. And again,
Yeah,
next
thank you.
week we'll
She's
have
great.
Sean Clements, which should be exciting. So thank you all for listening. Thank you two for being awesome. And we
Thank
will
you.
talk to you again next week.
Typical, disgusting display.
That was fun.